This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 26. Behind a Lock. And our symbol is the dual lady symbol.
I think we decided on the black Aja.
The black Aja symbol?
Yeah. Or at least, yeah, because here they're investigating the 13 women.
Yeah. It's like the mirrored women facing each other. One's black, one's white.
Is there a vase in the middle? No, not really.
Looks more like an anchor. Anyway. Shaking her head, Egwene walked back to the doors she had dismissed. She had to go somewhere. Inside the first, the few furnishings were shapeless mounds under dusty cloths, and the air seemed stale, as if the door had not been opened in some time. She grimaced. There were mouse tracks in the dust, on the floor, but no others. 2 more doors, open hastily, showed the same thing. It was no surprise. There were many more empty rooms than occupied in the acceptance galleries. When she pulled her head out of the third room, Nynaeve and Elaine were coming down the ramp behind her with no particular haste. Is she hiding? Nynaeve asked in surprise. In there? I lost her. Egwene peered both ways along the curving gallery again. Where did she go? She did not mean else. There's a couple things in there.
Yeah. They are heading to the location that Lanfear told them to. So this whole chapter, they're sort of going to the third storeroom on the right from the main stairs in the second basement under the library.
Right.
So that's what else, in quotes, Lanfear in reality told them to do. So I want to set this chapter up a little bit because we kind of started in the middle of action.
Sure.
So she's been chasing after Else.
You're right. She ran down the hall after Else, and when she turned the corner, Lanfear was standing there.
So I assume Lanfear just dropped the Mask of Mirrors or changed it in some way to appear as Lanfear. And then when Egwene turns away, she disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in this first paragraph checking all the doors to see, like, did she go into those? But of course, there's no footprints. And my assumption, which may or may not be right, I think some people would argue that she true power traveled, but I would say she used the Mask of Mirrors to go invisible, and she's still standing in the corridor.
I like that. I like that idea.
And of course, the reason that she's not able to be detected is she has 2 abilities that the girls later learn from Moghedien, which is the ability to mask her ability to channel, as well as the ability to invert weaves.
You know what I wanted to talk about really quick? There are mouse tracks in the dust in this place in the tower. Isn't it supposed to be protected?
The words are failing.
Already?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought when I saw that.
I didn't catch that. I just assumed that meant that nobody else had been in there. But of course, yeah, it's supposed to be warded against all vermin.
If I thought Else could outrun you, Elaine said with a smile, I'd have chased her too. But she has always looked too plump for running to me. I liked that.
That's because it's not Else. It's Lanfear.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, do you think those tracks could have been rat tracks as opposed to mouse tracks? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell just from the tracks. Or are mouse tracks much smaller?
They're a good deal smaller. I don't know that I would be able to really tell the difference if I was looking, though. Mouse feet are tiny. Like, their print would be like the size of like the first knuckle of my pinky finger or something. Smaller than that.
Okay.
Or that wide.
Do we think the Dark One can use mice as spies? Or just rats?
They are carrion eaters. Like, I don't see why not.
Agreed.
But we really only see
rats and ravens.
Yeah, as far as the Dark One's eyes. Like, any animal can be used or, like, spied through with the true power. Yeah, I just don't see why not. Mouse will eat just about anything.
Sure. And we do know, and there is the term vermin that is used as well.
Yeah.
The Dark One uses vermin as his eyes and ears, and I would say rats and mice both qualify.
You think cockroaches would qualify?
No.
There don't seem to be cockroaches in the Third Age anyway.
I think they have to have a brain and a spinal cord. I want them to be vertebrates. Because basically, like, when we see Grendel use the pigeons, she sees through the eyes of the pigeon.
Right.
And there has to be enough brain processing power to create an image that's accessible to humans. Because she already sees it as distorted by the pigeon.
And like an understandable image, you know, when you're looking at it. I don't know. I think if he were to look through a bug's eyes, it wouldn't look like the world that we know.
Exactly. Whereas I think the pigeon just gave her like a headache or something like that.
Oh, right. And they need to report. It would take a while for a cockroach to to move back and forth.
Hey, cockroaches are fast, man. They can move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you're just a couple of floors above her.
Ugh, I am so glad I've never had that problem.
Cockroaches?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Living in the South, they're everywhere. They're cockroaches. They exist.
I was very lucky. Even when I lived in New York City, it was, there are rats on the street, but not in your apartment. Well, not in my apartment anyway.
Oh my God, June bugs. Oh, so I used to live in Houston, and I used to swim in an outdoor pool. And what would happen is the lights would be on all night, so the June bugs would suicide into the pool because they were attracted to the lights. And so I would come in the morning for 6 a.m. practice, and you'd get in, and they'd say, all right, jump in the pool. And there was literally a carpet of bug bodies covering, like to the point where there was no water visible.
What? That's awful. That's
and
my skin is crawling right now.
I have to dive into that. And generally the first 10 minutes of practice was doing this like head up breaststroke where we basically push all the bugs into the lane lines and clear a little path down the middle of the lane so we could actually swim through the June bugs.
Bambi says crunchy swimming.
Yeah, it was disgusting. Gross. It was really disgusting. I definitely swallowed a couple of those just by swimming and just like turning my head to the side and like inhaling one. It was one of the grossest experiences of my life. They would just swarm in Texas.
This doesn't even compare, but it reminds me of going to American football practice when I was a kid, and we practiced in this huge field, and I grew up in like a pretty swampy place in Northeast United States, and so it's like it's wet and there's ponds everywhere.
Mosquito town.
Right. And there were Canadian geese that they were just all over the place all the time. And they would, they poop everywhere. And the field that we practice in was right next to a huge lake. And so you'd get out there in the morning or like before a game or whatever, and you have to do all these exercises where like your body hits the ground and you have to like roll, I remember one specifically where we would have to sprint like down the field and back. And every time the coach blew a whistle, you had to drop your body to the ground and roll and get back up and keep running, But there's geese shit everywhere. So
oh, God.
You'd be covered in it. But the coaches, they did a pretty good job, getting the kids to and they'd be like, especially before the game, they'd be like, the opposing team is going to want to touch you after this.
You're going to stink so bad. You're going to be disgusting so disgusting
to them.
You will be untouchable.
Anyway.
Back to the chapter.
Mice in the Tower.
The next thing I had is Egwene talking about Celine, a.k.a. Lanfear.
Right.
You'd notice her in a crowd. I think it's evidence. I think there's some evidence for some of that low-level compulsion.
I definitely think so. Especially when she tells Egwene to leave, and Egwene takes 3 steps before she realizes that she doesn't understand why she's...
Totally.
Yeah.
I like the speculation that some of her silver bracelets that she's always wearing or silver belt may have something, maybe ter'angreal, that induced that effect.
That was a huge revelation for me too, and the conversation we had with the Chosen in Discord. I think it was the last episode we recorded. She's always wearing that silver belt with the moon and stars, or whatever it is.
And that might not be a paralysis net per se, but a paralysis net is defined as any structure on which you can mount multiple ter'angreal that work together.
Right.
And so the belt could very well be a paralysis net of some kind.
That is another new thing that I learned while we were having that conversation last week, that the paralysis net is just the structure that combines ter'angreal. It doesn't have anything to do with the ter'angreal that you connect to it. So you can add, subtract things. to a
Mm-hmm.
paralysis net. But
Yeah.
I think we also speculated that whatever Lanfear has, if it is a item of power, it is not a paralysis net, but it's kind of acts a bit like one.
There was a bit of a debate about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it is one.
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
That would just be easier to explain.
Certainly possible she has a paralysis net. We'll keep an eye out for it.
Yeah.
I know Egwene says she must be an Aes Sedai, and I think that's because she gets close enough to sense her ability to channel.
It could be. I always kind of thought of it as she just acts like one. Like, all the Emmons Fielders seem to think that she's an Aes Sedai when they meet her.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely just that arrogance.
Right.
It's that Aes Sedai arrogance. But I feel like also she had her mask dropped, right?
Uh-huh.
She let her mask drop, and I think she also let the masking of her ability to channel drop. And so I think Egwene sensed that when she got close enough.
I did think that was kind of interesting that she appeared as Lanfear when Lanfear could appear as anyone she wants. She comes around that corner, and that's why I think the Mask of Mirrors theory is the best way to explain that, because she appears to Rand as herself, but I feel like that's a bit different.
Sometimes she appears as a younger version of herself to Rand.
Yeah.
She uses Mask of Mirrors constantly. Even when she's Sidane, she uses it just to appear like Lanfear again. Like, she always covers up her appearance. And again, that could be another part of her paralysis net. Probably not, but it could be something she could tie to a Terangriel.
Yes, Bambi. And again, we talked about this in the last episode, but I thought it was interesting that whatever Lanfear does to Egwene, the low-level compulsion that we always refer to, is unlike what happens to Rand and Matt, say, where they're just like, jaw falls to the floor, steam goes out their ears, full cartoon style. And she's like, so beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was a little interesting that she does the reverse, or sort of, not the reverse, but something totally different to Egwene.
Well, I think it's the same effect.
Like, why not just do the same thing?
But
if you can just make someone ridiculously attracted to you, their sex shouldn't matter, right?
Well, so I think where he's coming from is all Lanfear is doing is making herself incredibly attractive, and to men, that makes her very desirable. To women, it makes her enviable. So
she may not be, say, compelling people to believe she's beautiful as much as making herself appear beautiful. And
compelling people to think she's gorgeous. That makes another beautiful woman feel bad about herself.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is she's not compelling people to be attracted to her. She's compelling people to believe that she's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen.
Exactly.
So so it just
it's her vanity.
Egwene's straight, so she's just like, this is a beautiful woman, but that doesn't
that just makes me feel bad about myself. It doesn't turn me on. Yeah. And there's a line here, the more she thought about the woman, the more she felt there was something wrong about her. And I think that's her either sensing that compulsion or just sensing something that's going on.
That something.
So her emotions aren't right when she's around that woman.
I highlighted that too. She, of course, in her head kind of assumes that it's just because she's being jumpy about the Black Aja, and surely this was just an Aes Sedai that she ran into. And
Right. I noticed she's carrying the Terangrial.
Oh, yeah. And she sticks it in her belt pouch, but she's holding it in this scene.
And Lanfear definitely sees the ring.
Oh, really?
Because Else sees it when she, Else in quotes, sees it when she walks in.
I remember that.
And then again, Lanfear looks at it when she's talking to Egwene, even though Egwene has it clutched in her fist and hidden. So Lanfear knows she's got it, which is relevant because we still see Sylvie in the next chapter in the heart of Tyr.
Wait, Sylvie?
Sylvie.
Is that another Lanfear alias?
That's another Lanfear alias. She's the old woman who appears in the heart of Tyr. and gives Egwene advice.
Tells her about Kalendor.
Yep. Here's the plan. Balal is trying to draw Rand to Tyr so he can get Kalendor. He wants Rand to take Kalendor out of its space, and then he wants to take Kalendor from him, kill him with it, and then use that to be the most powerful Forsaken.
Right.
Lanfear, we've seen Lanfear spying on it, so we know she knows about the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what she's doing is sending these girls to Tyr to be there to help Rand when he goes to claim the sword.
I totally agree.
Because she doesn't want Balal to win.
As well as the items that we see later in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Each of the 13 Black Ajah left a clue that they were going to Tyr. I don't think any of them left a clue that they were going to Tyr.
No, Lanfear left the clues.
Yeah. It made me question whether or not these were even their possessions.
Between the clues she leaves and then showing up as Sylvie in the Heart of the Stone to give Egwene all of these clues and to lead her and talk about secrets and all this kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like, Lanfear's plan is definitely to send the girls on the path of the Dark Friends to Tyr.
I totally agree.
They are dancing at the end of Lanfear's strings.
Yeah. So, 3 women head to the library. And I wanted to read this short description of the library because it's awesome, and I think it's actually the only one we see. The library stood a little apart from the tall, thick shaft of the White Tower proper, its pale stone heavily streaked with blue, and it looked much like crashing waves frozen at their climax. Those waves loomed as large as a palace in the morning light, and Egwene knew they certainly contained as many rooms as one, but all those rooms, those below the odd corridors in the upper levels, where Varen had her chambers, were filled with shelves, and the shelves filled with books, manuscripts, papers, scrolls, maps, and charts, collected from every nation over the course of 3,000 years. Not even the great libraries of Tyr and Cairhien held so many. And it goes on to say the librarians are all brown sisters, and they jealously guard everything that goes in and out of the library.
Of course they're all brown sisters.
Yeah. Like, you can't check out a book. You have to write an explanation as to what the book is, why you want it, how long you're going to have it. They're very serious about it.
I do need to reread one sentence, though.
Oh, sure. Did I make a mistake?
You might say that.
What?
The library stood apart from the tall,
oh no,
shaft of the White Tower proper, and it looked much like the crashing
my
waves
face.
frozen at their climax.
I had the thought while I was reading it. I was like, this is a strangely sexual sentence.
It's a very sexual sentence. I'm sorry. Anytime you say tall, thick shaft and climax in the same sentence. Thank you, Bambi, for pointing that out.
All the doors are guarded with guards, and like,
well, yeah.
but they don't go to those doors. They go to doors that lead to the storerooms underneath the library, where presumably lots of kind of unimportant things are kept. The idea being that workers can go in and out, and they use the basement of this place to store tools and things.
And they're following the directions of Lanfear to that shed in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Again, girls, trap getting into? Let's go to this abandoned storeroom in the basement of the White Tower without any idea or telling anyone where we're going.
It seems so strange. It's amazing that they don't see that as a trap. Elsa's like, hey, you know where they keep the shovels for the manure down in the basement of the library? Yeah. Next room is like this incredibly important evidence for these highly wanted criminals. What? Are you serious?
I mean, what
it's next to the empty barrels, right? Huh?
Yeah. It's clear that Lanfear just picked an empty storeroom.
Yeah.
I'm guessing she gatewayed in and out.
It also, the description, again, we're not there yet, but the description of some of the items, there's only, it's, just a glaze over. It's like, why would an Aes Sedai own these things? It's like garbage.
It's their garbage, yeah. I noticed there's a little more description of the girls embracing the power, and this is sort of the drip, drip, drip of them getting a little more powerful every time they use the one power.
Yeah.
Because right now, Egwene is able to pretty much embrace the one power at will. And she's discovering she can weave two threads at the same time pretty much effortlessly.
I noticed that as well. Egwene embraces the source and she describes it as smoothly and easily, and she doesn't even realize what she's doing. She makes the ball of light and she forms a lightning bolt when she feels nervous, and she realizes that she's making two weaves at once. But this is presumably maybe the first time she's done it, and it's easy. So Nynaeve leads them to the room. They find the room, and it's the only room with a lock on it in the whole place. A lock? Nynaeve jerked at it. The chain had no give, and neither did the lock. Did either of you see a lock anywhere else? She pulled it again, then flung it against the door hard enough to bounce. The bang echoed down the hall. I did not see one other locked door. She pounded a fist on the rough wood. Not one. Calm yourself, Elaine said. There's no need to throw a tantrum. I could open the lock myself, if I could see how the inside of it works. We will open it some way. I do not want to calm myself, Nynaeve snapped. I want to be furious. I want... Letting the rest of the tirade fade from her awareness, Egwene touched the chain. She had learned more things than how to make lightning bolts since leaving Tarvalon. One was an affinity for metal. That came from Earth. One of the 5 powers few women had much strength in. The other was fire, but she had it, and she could feel the chain, feel inside the chain, feel the tiniest bits of the cold metal, the patterns they made. The power within her quivered in time to the vibration of those patterns. Move out of my way, Egwene. And of course, Nynaeve is now angry because she doesn't have what she wants immediately.
I mean, I think she's deliberately making herself angry so that she can channel.
I like that you stick with that, but yes. And she even says it out loud. She says, I don't want to calm down.
She's like, no, I'm not trying to calm down. I'm trying to work myself up to get angry. I think the next thing she says is, I want to be able to channel.
Right. But Egwene stops paying attention. We just hear, I want. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's probably what she says.
But I think this is just like everyone... Egwene and Elaine have to get used to Nynaeve just deliberately making herself angry. And that's part of, like, she works herself up into this frenzy all the time because she knows that's the only way she can embrace the power.
Yeah. She's also, I mean, she's a bit like that in general. And you know what I really liked about this? And very Nynaeve, like very characteristic of Nynaeve, she channels to make a crowbar out of the air so that she can bust the lock open with a tool, which is, I feel like it says a lot about her character that she would make a tool to do a job rather than like Egwene just touches the lock, feels it, and she's unlocking it. But Nynaeve like shoves her aside so that she can break the thing open.
I want to say this was like the only time I've ever seen anyone actually make a tool versus just use air as a force. Like from now on, she just busts the door open with air.
She could just like she could melt the lock. She could explode the lock. She could,
nodding.
Yeah, just move it away, rip it right off the wall. Like it, she could just unlock it. These are all things that she could do, but instead she makes a tool to break it.
You know what it reminds me of? When Suan is giving them the lesson and makes the sword. It's like, oh, you want a sword? Pop, here's a sword.
Yeah.
It's not very useful. Pop, here's a knife. A knife is a little more useful, but better just to carry a belt knife.
Right.
It's like, why actually create a tool when the power itself is more useful? And that's a lesson that Suan has already taught her that she hasn't really learned.
I feel like I don't want to say she never learns that lesson, but I feel like, and maybe this kind of goes into why the tower's reasoning for not wanting older women to train, because Nynaeve is an adult who has had real responsibilities and a real job and has, cared for...
She's hard to teach.
Cared for people. She doesn't want to learn. You know what I mean? Nynaeve knows. She already knows. Or, that's what she would say. She doesn't need to learn anything.
And she is a blunt instrument.
Yes. Nynaeve is a hammer. Fix a lot of stuff with a hammer. Fix a lot of problems with a hammer.
But you know what you look like to a hammer? A nail.
Okay, I'm about to tangent hard. I'm really not that sorry, but kind of sorry.
All right, go for it.
So I had an awesome experience once where, right, long story short, I worked for a tool rental company that rented like big tools, not just little tools, but like, you know, big Kubotas and diggers and stuff. And part of the tool rental company was there's a guy you could take your power tools to who would repair them for you. And I was hanging out with him one day and just like helping him work, running errands for him and whatever. And a guy had brought in a little four-wheeler, an ATV. I don't know if that translates internationally, but it's like a tiny, tiny truck. I don't really know how to explain it. Google it, ATV. And yeah, a guy rolls it off his truck and he was like, I don't know what happened. Like, it's pretty new. It won't start. I even winterized it, blah, blah, blah. And John goes, oh yeah, that's rough. Like, it'll probably take a lot of work. You know, I'll see what I can do over the next week. Like, I'll give you a call once I get it started. And the guy's like, okay, like sadly drives off, and he like looks at it, moves it around, opens the hood, opens the little hood or whatever, you know, engine compartment, and turns the key, listens, turns the key again, listens, walks into his work shed, pulls out like a 3-pound rubber hammer. Have you ever seen those things?
Oh yeah.
Opens the engine compartment and just slams the thing with a rubber hammer. It bounces off, turns the key, it starts. No shit.
Yeah.
He was like, if the alternator was rusty on the inside, sometimes if you just hit it hard enough, it'll start again.
It knocks the rust off.
Yeah, he charged the guy like a couple $100. Fixed it in like 25 seconds.
Remember,
like, you are a jerk. But I wouldn't have known to do that. So
you're not charging for the hammer blow. You're charging for the knowledge that a hammer blow will fix the
engine. It
engine.
was like fucking magic. I was like, how did you do that? You seriously? Did you just Fonzie that thing? Like, just punched it and it started? How? What?
So Nynaeve goes to use the crowbar on the chain, and it just like disintegrates and sends her flying across the room because she doesn't expect it, because Egwene changed the alloy, changed the atomic structure.
She weakened it.
She weakened it somehow. I assume she changed the crystalline structure of the metal from being strong to weak.
Yeah, yeah.
Strong to fragile.
The power within her quivered in time to the vibrations of those patterns. Right. And that's the second, but there are 3 times in this chapter Egwene does something with the power that she wasn't aware she knew how to do. Make 2 weaves at once. She's never done that before.
Doing something to the chain and sticking the ball of light to the wall.
So she doesn't have to carry it around. She can just put it where she wants.
This is definitely a leveling up moment for her.
I also noticed that when Egwene, and this happens in like just a second here, when Egwene sticks the ball of light to the wall, Elaine just watches her and then she does it.
Yeah. Okay. So I wrote down here, I think this is an old blood thing. You know, we've talked about her being a reincarnation of Eldrine. And we also talk about how powerful channelers can learn weaves pretty spontaneously.
Right. There is that. It's listed as a type of talent.
But there is, I do wonder if, like with Matt, like with Rand, you know, some of that battle ability is leakage from old memories.
Yeah, and not just battle ability, but, you know, all sorts of knowledge.
Channeling ability, knowledge, yeah.
It could be. I kind of would like to think so. Right, because it would be hard to explain that Egwene would even know that was possible.
Doing things without knowing how she does them, and then other people learning from her. I mean,
right.
that is something that several other channelers do. Like, we see Avienda do it, we see Nynaeve do it, we see Egwene do it. Like, I can think of circumstances where almost every major channeler does something spontaneously without really knowing how to do it. Avienda for gateways.
Yeah, Bambi's reminding us that it happens to Rand like all the freaking time.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, Rand constantly.
Yeah.
Is channeling new weaves without. I mean, but him, we can always attribute that to the taint and the old memories from Lewis Theron leaking across that barrier.
Right. I like this theory because it really fits. Obviously we don't see Matt doing anything with the power because he's not a channeler, but we see all sorts of other things leaking through, and Rand and Matt are both like heavily damaged in like a, kind of spiritual way. So then
Rand through the taint, Matt through the Shadow
Logoth
dagger, and the cleansing.
Right. And we've speculated before that all this stuff is leaking through to Matt in part, well, for lots of other reasons, but in part because there's like a thinned barrier that's supposed to be there. And that's the way it works for Rand as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The madness thins the barrier.
Yeah. They're getting this echo of their previous life. And Matt is getting these battle memories, which are helping him fight.
Yeah.
And Rand is getting these channeling memories. They're helping him learn how to use the sword and helping him discover new weaves as he learns to channel. But because Rand is insane, he's taking those memories and personifying them with a voice in his head.
Yeah. And we see this happen to some of the women as well, like you just mentioned, but less so, like with a less pronounced effect. Well, because they're not going insane.
They don't have the taint, the penny polishing or the taint to create a channel. They just have standard old blood memories.
Just the blood.
Yeah. But I do think that maybe some of what goes on here is that, there's echoes of previous lives.
So I think that's part Egwene old blood leakage, and then Elaine is also a powerful channeler, and she's just able to see what she did.
Right.
And pick it up quickly once she knows it's possible.
Yeah. I mean, Egwene does something. She doesn't know how. Elaine copies it. And then Egwene copies it again.
Right. Yes. I forgot to bring that up. That Egwene didn't know what she did, so she wouldn't be able to repeat it. But then Elaine watched her do it, copies it. And when Egwene watches Elaine do it, then she actually learns how to do it.
She comprehends how to do it.
Yeah.
And like we see that with Aviendha, who has to like relearn how to make gateways.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't know how she did it, and there was no one around to like. That would have been pretty cool if someone had been around Aviendha when she spontaneously created a gateway, and that's how they discovered them.
Yeah, I love the powerful women in this series. The way back will come but once, unless you're naive.
Then you get twice.
I don't want the door to close.
The way back will come but twice.
All right.
God, fine.
Calm down.
Twice is it? So they go through all of these bags of equipment. Do you and I guess my central question here is, do you think this stuff actually belonged to the 13 women?
Nah.
Or do you think it's totally manufactured by Lanfear?
Yeah, it just seems like total bullshit to me. Like, there are some likely items, but I'll read this line here. Proved to be mainly old clothes and shoes, a few ripped and crumpled papers. Yeah, that's it. Like, you'd think an Aes Sedai would have, like, nice things, right? You're, like, 100 years old. You get a stipend, essentially, to do nothing. These women are wealthy, and they would have nice things. And then later, like, a torn cloak and, like, worn-out shoes. Like, why? Throw them away. Donate them to the poor. Get a new pair of shoes.
My theory is when this stuff was sent to be burned, Lanfear saved it.
Okay.
And then hid a clue among each person's stuff towards Tyr. So I think the junk actually belonged to the women.
Yeah.
But I think the clues pointing towards Tyr were planted by Lanfear.
I mean, I definitely, was with you on the second part already.
Right. I mean, I know the junk could also just be random junk that was stolen. It doesn't necessarily have to belong to the women.
Right.
But I don't think, honestly, I really just don't think Lanfear would put that much work into it. I think rather than gathering up different stuff, she just like, oh, you're going to go burn this stuff? Compulsion. You burned it and give it to me.
Okay. Yeah, I can actually see that now, because now that I'm thinking about it, another thing that I thought was really weird about it is that there's 13 sacks, precisely 13. So again, these wealthy, affluent women have one sack of possessions.
I mean,
I have more than that. I'm poor. Like, you know?
but I think they took most of their good stuff with them. They knew they were leaving. They packed up and left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I guess these are also personal possessions. Like, so they would also own like furniture and,
Right.
things like that.
Right. But that wasn't. Yeah, this is just like your clothes and your, what they found in your desk drawer, not like
Yeah.
your desk.
It seemed a little weird and just incomplete, but also very neat. Neatly incompletely.
This stuff is deliberately planted by Lanfear. Whether she actually acquired it from the 13 folks or whether she created it on her own, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think she planted all the evidence for Tyr.
Totally. Either way, it's crazy suspicious.
Right.
And even Nynaeve says after they're going through the stuff, I'll read this little part. There's something from everyone, Egwene muttered. Every one of them left something pointing to a journey to Tyr. How could anyone miss seeing it if they looked? Why did the Amyrlin say nothing of this? The Amyrlin, Nynaeve said bitterly, keeps her own counsel, and what matter if we burn for it? She drew a deep breath and sneezed from the dust they had stirred up. What worries me is that I am looking at bait.
You are looking at bait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, it's not bait left by the Black Ajah.
No.
It's bait left by Lanfear.
So that to help them hunt the Black Ajah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just to get them to Tyr. They're just there to be the counter to the Black Ajah so they don't interfere with Rand.
Right.
Yeah.
Just and as far as Lanfear is concerned, whether they're successful or not, they'll still distract the Black Ajah.
Sure.
They don't have to be successful in killing them. They just have to be successful in delaying and distracting.
Here's another thought. She could be sending them there to be captured as bait.
For Rand?
For Rand.
Maybe.
That's what happens. They're captured as bait.
Yeah.
They are taken in. They are set there, and that could be
trying to remember
Lanfear.
this plot. And then Matt rescues them.
Yep.
Well,
I mean,
there's a debate about it.
Yeah,
but...
they disable the Aes Sedai who's guarding them, but they can't get out of the cell. Matt couldn't have rescued them if they hadn't disabled the Aes Sedai.
But so it's kind of a mutual effort.
Right. Well, as with all great works, when men and women work together, good things happen.
Hey.
This is the point. Okay, can I just
full circle.
Small diversions here. This is the fucking point of the books. Men and women need to work together. And when they do, good things happen, like the series, because it's Harriet and Robert Jordan working together. We often see strife between men and women, but Jordan is making a point that strife is not productive or helpful.
Right.
It's only when they're able to overcome that strife that good things happen. A lot of that annoying male-female bullshit that goes on in this story is there to show that when it's not going on, that's when you win.
I'm nodding.
And this is a lot of what's going on with Perrin's storyline, is that butting of heads is like, come on, you need to work with Fael. She is the other half of you.
I like that a lot also because, if Matt hadn't come, they wouldn't have been able to get out of the cell and they would have probably ended up dead.
Totally.
And if the girls hadn't done what they could from their side, Matt would have come down there, skipping along and gotten blasted out of existence.
Because he was like, oh, I wouldn't hurt a woman, and she would have fireballed him.
Right.
Yeah. That may have been a little bit of Taviran luck, right? So that, of course, he's not going to walk into a situation he can't escape. He's going to be lucky that the person who wants to kill him is disabled.
Right. Sleeping, right?
Well, half asleep and shielded.
Here's just thought popped into my head. Is it a trap? Okay, I'm air quoting. Left by the Black Ajah for the Aes Sedai to find and follow them to Tyr, which Lanfear then directed their attention to, or is it totally constructed by Lanfear?
That's a great question. Because they are taken in by the Black Ajah, right? Because they're betrayed by Julian Sandar, because he's under compulsion.
Right. Yeah, Septon, I don't think they have a plan to avoid the trap. Nynaeve's plan is to walk into the trap, because then it's sprung, and whoever sets the trap will then arrive.
But because they know it's a trap, that automatically makes them immune to it, right?
No. I'm not saying it's good planning. Sure? I'm just telling you what the plan was.
But we're just that competent as 3 totally unexperienced girls going up against 13
fully trained Aes Sedai.
Fully trained Aes Sedai. Yeah, it's going to go well. So they decide their only possibility, their strategy to get more information is to head into the dream.
For a time, they simply stared in silence at the array. What do we do now? Elaine asked finally. Egwene squeezed the ring hard. Dreaming was closely linked to foretelling. The future, and events in other places could appear in a dreamer's dreams. Maybe we will know after tonight. Nynaeve looked at her, silent and expressionless. Then chose out a dark skirt that seemed not to have too many holes and rips, and began bundling in it the things they had found. For now, she said, we will take this back to my room and hide it. I think we just have time, if we don't want to be late to the kitchens. Late, Egwene thought. The longer she held the ring through her pouch, the greater the urgency she felt. We're already a step behind, but maybe we won't be too late. Talking about the old YouTube station Autotune the News. I'm sure they're still doing things, but I don't pay attention. I used to be much plugged into the internet.
The internet used to be better.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've also changed.
That's part of it, but I honestly do think the internet has become... It used to be a place where, like, weird but fun, interesting things rose to the top, and now it's a place where bullshit rises to the top.
It's like pretty much Instagram selfies. I feel like that's like most of the internet now. And I mean, I haven't been on 4chan in years, but I used to like to just check 4chan. It's like the pulse of the internet. If something's happening, if something's going to happen on the rest of the internet, you'll see it on B first. Mm-hmm. You'll also see a lot of other terrible things on B.
Right, that's the problem. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm right there with you, yeah. Same thing with Reddit. Like, there was a while where it was actually sort of at the forefront of what you would see on the internet.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of terrible stuff on there, too, but at least it used to be on the forefront. Now it's just... Yeah, well, I've looked, and maybe I'm getting old, but I feel like I can't find interesting content on the internet anymore. Like, I've lost my... Like, the Pirate Bay used to be vibrant. It's pretty much,
Yeah, it's kind of...
dead.
Dull now. I still use it, but...
Yeah.
But I only torrent open source software.
All right, recording's off. Cut that. No, I mean, I use torrents, and there was a time when... Oh, I get warnings all the time. They come to... every once in a while, I like to log into the Comcast email account that they give you. It's an automatic one. And check the messages. Last time I logged in, I had 25 warnings for downloading illegal content. Like, we have detected you are downloading blah, 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 blah. There may be some consequences.
Wait, you have an email account associated with...
Comcast? Yeah.
Oh, with Comcast.
Yeah. Just because, like, they make you create one when you create an account.
Oh. Yeah, they're not going to come for you, guys.
No. As it turns out.
It's not worth it. Hey, if we're going to make America great again, does that mean we go back to dial-up? Or, like, before that?
Before that, the internet has clearly ruined America.
Back to, like, Morse code, or... Like pre-phone or
Pony Express, man. Pony Express.
I read that the Pony Express never made any money. It was just a sink.
Jobs program, clearly.
Pigeons. Can we do owls? Owls would be much cooler.
They would be much cooler.
Messenger owls.
Ravens.
You know what I used to thought about? I always used to think about when I was reading Harry Potter. Wouldn't those owls like poop all over the tables when they just like flying around everywhere?
Yes, they would.
I wonder if that's a common problem in Hogwarts.
Owl pellets.
Ooh, gross. Just sticky, matted hair.
And like, okay, that always bothered me. Like, they were always worried about the cat eating the mouse. Why were they never worried about the owls eating the rats? Like, owls love to eat rats. That's what they eat. Scabbers was never like, oh my god, a rat, an owl. He was like, totally, the cat was freaking out. But like,
are they magic owls? Are they like highly intelligent owls, or are they just regular owls? I mean, owls are, I would think, fairly smart, but you know.
I mean, they do run a complex postal service where they're able to detect the location.
With no training.
No training.
They just know how to do this. Owls are excellent managers, as it turns out.
Like, they're able to track down wizards no matter where they've apparated to, no matter where they are. If you're trying to track down a wizard, send them a letter, attach a homing beacon to the owl, and, you know, you'll be able to assassinate them just by finding out where they are.
Wow. Why doesn't someone just deliver a bomb to Voldemort? You just need one owl. A magic bomb.
Yeah.
That kills magical creatures.
The Potter Bomber. An alternate tale about a lonely wizard who sits alone in his cabin in the woods.
He only talks to Hagrid. And only sometimes.
And it turns out that Hagrid's not actually real. It's just a figment of his broken personality.
Someone write this fan fiction.
I mean, I gotta say, like, the plot holes in Harry Potter are gaping.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything against Harry Potter.
I love the books.
Yeah.
Love them. Love them. Think the characters are great. But it is old school magic as opposed to new school magic. And when I separate those, I really make Wheel of Time the dividing line. Old school magic was Gandalf needs to do something and poof, magic.
Yeah.
Magic solves plot holes. New magic is we have this scientific set of rules and we're going to use those to solve problems and do cool stuff.
But there are like hard limits to what you can do.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's a set of rules. It's not poof magic.
Poof magic.
Poof magic versus technical magic? I like it.
Yeah, Gandalf did seem kind of limited, but I don't really know.
But his
LOTR
limits
that
were
well.
artificial.
Yeah.
His limits were always plot-based.
Poof magic.
Well, puff magic is something that happens behind the garage.
Puff, the magic dragon. You know what I was thinking about while reading this chapter along a similar line? Nobody ever uses light as a weapon, and they can presumably create like huge amounts of like huge blasts of light. Like the girls are just walking through with little light balls, you know.
I thought someone used a flashbang once.
Really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say that would be like a really useful tool.
But I honestly can't. I think against the Trollocs ran certainly like lighting up the trees. I think one time that blinds them. I feel like there's a couple other times that
if you could just create a burst of light, it would blind
I feel like
people.
in the last battle, at some point the channelers light everything up, and it just blinds the Trollocs for a second.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?